come straight back here after Cleveland? Or why did you leave?
Because of my family. And she said, I'll help you get a job. And it seemed like after I got there for a couple of weeks,
There. Where was there?
Glasgow, Montana.
Okay. So this is Faith's mom.
Pardon?
This is Faith's mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And after I was there, after they used all my money up, it seemed like they just wanted me for my money. And I tried to get a job, and it was a redneck town to me. I couldn't get a job. And I even went tried bartender. I used to bartend over there. And I bartend over here in Montana too. Had two jobs, like barber and bartend in the evening.
So after Glasgow, where'd you go?
What's that?
After Glasgow, where'd you go?
After Glasgow, I came home.
Okay.
I was kicked out in the middle of winter. And my chill factor was about 70, 75 below. And I would just stand on the road just for a few minutes and run to that, driving, warm up. And I go back out because I didn't have any money. And then I stood there again and somebody said, hey, Indian. There was a motel nearby. There was a red towel. Must have been a bathroom. Come here. I walked over there and he said, we just now seen you. He said, oh, you're cold. I said, yeah, you're right. He said, you want a hot toddy? I told him, sure. So he fixed me a hot toddy and I just downed it. And then I said, I gotta see if I can catch a ride. He said, you will not catch a ride here, he said. He said, this is a bad town.
Now, what town was that?
Glasgow.
You're still in Glasgow. Okay.
And I was going to Harlem, to my friend's place,
Okay.
Enid Fisher. She lived in Harlem. And she was married over there to a Gray. His last name was Gray. And I figured I'd go over there and spend some time there and ask to borrow money and I would go home. And after the third hot toddy, the guy says, come on around. It was Christmas Eve. Come on, spend the night. No, it was before Christmas Eve, day before. He said, spend the night. And I didn't know there was a lot of people in there, a lot of Indians in there, you know. And so I went in there and, oh man, it was whiskey, vodka, wine, beer, you name it. And I was already buzzed a little bit, you know. And three big hot toddies, you know. So I sat there and here the family must have been watching. And these guys would go out and get some more booze. And they seen them carry that stuff into the motel and they called the cops. And they raided that. They raided us. And while they were arresting people, I took off out the door. I hid. And after they brought all the drunks out, they left the soberest ones in there. The manager let them stay there because it was cold. And after a while, I went back over there and knocked on the door. And they had already hid some of the booze. So I stayed there all night. And the guy said, go ahead, use the phone if you want to. At the time, phones were open, you know. So I did. I called my mother. And I said, I need a bus ticket. She said, oh, I'll go to Forsyth and buy it. Just checking the bus depot. So that bus wasn't run going east, but they had one going west. And I'd just go as far as Malta, and I would have to catch a stage truck from Malta to Billings. So I caught that, and I had a little bit for a small bottle of pint of vodka, whiskey, or whatever I wanted, you know. So I bought it and kept it in my pocket. And then I got to Malta. I had to wait, I think, 3 or 4 hours for the stage. And the train depot was cold. And I didn't have no luggage. And finally, the truck came. And then he came in the door, and I recognized this guy. That was Sis Elliott's brother. His name was Buddy. I said, hey, what are you doing here? I said, you driving that truck? He said, I've been driving a truck a long time, Lee. He said, what are you doing here? So I told him, he said, you can sleep if you can. He said, it was a rough truck, big truck. And we started out and I got to Billings, and I caught a bus from Billings to Crow. No, that was a different time. I caught a bus from there to Hysham. I called my brother up and told him to pick me up in Hysham. Because Forsyth's a redneck town.
Is your brother George?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I got off the bus in Hysham. There was no lights. Just Christmas lights, you know, Christmas Eve. About 11 o'clock at night. And then I got to thinking, I'm going to go to the bar if my brother don't show up and ask where the Catholic church is. And I'll go knocking on a priest's house. I started walking, I heard this car coming. And here was my brother, Cleveland, Highwalker. They picked me up and they said, Merry Christmas. They said, help yourself getting back. And here's what they did. They bought 2 cases of beer and just emptied it. It was laying all over the back seat. So I sat like this. And we started on that narrow road, hitting ice, going like this. And they were already drunk, you know. I tell them, slow down. They slowed down just a few minutes. And pretty soon they gave me a bottle of vodka. Here, take a whole bunch of it. So I took a whole bunch of it. About halfway to Coaster by. Started kind of getting on there. I didn't care how fast we went there.
That road wasn't paved,
No,
was it?
no, it was.
No, it was?
Down there. They had just paved it. Icy. And we stopped in Coaster to George's, and he was already drinking. He was married to Carol and Cherries. And they were both partying. So we spent a night there.
That was in about 1960.
You got home 67? Mm-hmm. Somewhere in there.
Okay.
Got home about the same time.
Why were they living in Colstrip? What were they doing there?
I think George worked over there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he worked. that log cabin that sits on top of the hill that's where they lived on the bottom. And it was a spooky place, man, I tell you. And when they moved the log house to the top of the hill, the security guys at Montana Power, they used to tell me that house is haunted. I said, I believe you. They said, how do you know? So I told them the story about it. And Ankeny was the name, Anki. I forgot his first name. You know who I'm talking about. Used to work for the fuel crew. He was a utility man. I can't think of his first name.
3 or 4?
3 and 4. 3 and 4.
I don't know.
There was McPherson and him.
Dwayne?
No,
Yankee?
no, McPherson was his brother. Dwayne's brother, older brother. And the Ankeny was, he's not this Ankeny that lives in Forsyth. He still lives in Colstrip, I think. I don't know if he still works for Montana
Wait a
Power.
minute, tell me why the hunting lodge is haunted.
It's an old log house,
Right.
and some of the Cheyennes used to camp by the old log house. And I forgot who died in there.
They were where the man camp was, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And after people moved away from it, it started getting that way. But George moved in there.
George, your brother?
George and Carol.
No.
Skywalker.
Okay. So they were down at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, they didn't stay in there very long because it was haunted.
That whole hill is haunted. Is that what you're saying?
The house.
The house. And then my uncle told me there was a bad spirit down there. And he wasn't very good. And he would take people. And he worked down there when the Germans were doing World War II. They were sent over to a prison camp.
Right.
That was a prison camp. And they worked for the coal mine. And my uncle worked with them.
Now, which uncle?
And Charles Brady.
Okay.
And they had machine guns on them, train flat cars. They had 3 machine guns with the troops, behind the machine gun. And there was troops around some of the German workers. And they would make them stay and work. He said, we mingled with them. He said, they were human like we were. He said, but some of them didn't speak English. And anyway, that haunted house